Let's jump right into how to use this. ChatGPT Canvas is now available for ChatGPT Plus and Team users globally. Enterprise and Edu users will need to wait until next week to get access to it, while the free users will have to wait until Canvas is out of beta. But it's only available for ChatGPT Plus and Team users right now. The model picker allows you to select it manually. The model used with Canvas is GPT-4o. Let's select that. According to the release, it should open in a separate window. Let's see how to do that. It can be used for writing and coding. Let's see. If I say, help me cook a new recipe for dinner, it won't open. This is not mainly because of the typo I had there, but because OpenAI is training Canvas to open or be sensitive to opening with certain triggers only. But if you want ChatGPT to use Canvas explicitly, we can say, help me prepare a recipe for dinner, use Canvas. Let's see what will happen. There you go, it opens in a new window. It's not really a new window, but part of the window here. It says, here's a simple but delicious dinner idea you might enjoy. Yeah, this is exactly like Claude Artifact, although it only contains text right now. If we include use Canvas, it will automatically open it as a canvas. If not, then you will just use the regular ChatGPT chat interface. Okay, we can open it like that, and we can explore it here. But before that, let me create another chat again. This time, let's see if I can trigger the canvas automatically. Let's say, write a blog post about the history of coffee beans. I'm just using the example mentioned in the release notes. Let's see. There you go. It automatically opened Canvas even without explicitly including use Canvas in the prompt. Let's explore what is included in Canvas. We can see a button here that includes suggest edits. We can add emojis, add final polish, change the reading level, adjust the length, and suggest edits. Let's try it one by one from bottom to top. Let's click on suggest edits. Okay, so it highlighted this part. It says consider ending with a more impactful statement, blah blah blah. And there's a button here that says apply. Let's see what will happen. It's applying, I think. There you go, it rewrites that portion of the text, and I noticed also that I can type anything here. For example, I can add a new paragraph here, and then maybe I can ask, do I need this part? So I can highlight the portion of the text and get suggestions for that part. Let's see what will happen. And ChatGPT removed it. Very nice. But let's see the next one. We can adjust the length. So this is the current length, and we can adjust the length to the shortest form, or adjust the length to the longest form. Let's make it shorter. This version is now shorter, and how can we go back to the previous version? There's no version picker here like in Claude Artifact, and also here when we edit the prompt. But there is a button here that says previous version. That's a previous version. It highlights the changes that were made between this version, the previous version, and the latest version. Let's also go back a bit. And there's a new paragraph there. Let's undo or go back. This looks like an undo button, but it's actually a version navigator. And there's a button here to restore this version, and a nice information that says we are viewing a previous version. We can restore this version and make edits, but we can go back to the latest version as well, or go to the next version. We can copy the whole text if we want. Let's go back to the latest version and try the next shortcut. The available reading levels are high school, college, graduate school. We can make it middle school, kindergarten, and that's it. So let's see what will happen if we select kindergarten. This is a very nice effect. So it transformed it into a story format. Awesome. Okay, now let's try graduate school. Now ChatGPT transformed the article into graduate school level, and let's see the difference. Okay, it's not highlighting the difference probably because all the text has been changed. This is our previous suggest edits action. So if it's a complete rewrite, then there's no point highlighting the difference because the difference is the entire text, right? So it makes sense. And then let's try add final polish. It's nice to have something written here. It says I've adjusted the text to reflect a graduate school level, enhancing. So this is the comment of the edit. And we can see here that it says I've added some final polish to the text, including enhancing section titles, consistent formatting, checking grammar and mechanics, ensure clarity and flow. Let me know if you have any further refinement. So we can either use the chat text box or use the function shortcuts here. So we can say update the article text for a college reading level. You can also do that. Or use the shortcuts available for writing. Now I'm demonstrating the writing. Later I will demonstrate the coding as well. Let's see what's changed. There's nothing changed because this is a complete rewrite. But the final polish, there's nothing changed also. I don't see any changes except for this. It would be nice if we can see what we did in this current version. In the previous version, for example, did we update the level or did we update the length and so on? Anyway, OpenAI said that they are rapidly improving the capabilities of Canvas. Let's try the next one, add emojis. This is a nice animation. I like it. So there's a lot of emojis used here, and let's see if we can see what's different. There's no diff indicators here again. Anyway, that's how it is for writing. Let's see how it will perform or how to use this new ChatGPT feature called Canvas for coding. Let's go back and create a new chat. What can I say here? So let's see if it can create a simple game. Let's say create a game, a guessing game about Bible characters, for example. Use emojis, or as described by emojis. Use 5 emojis to describe a Bible character. On each question, reveal 1 emoji at a time every 3 seconds. If the player did not choose an answer, it will show the correct answer briefly and proceed with the next one until all 10 questions are either answered or skipped. Provide a way to score the player and a chance to restart the game. So let's see what it will do. I didn't mention use Canvas, but let's see if it can deduce from this prompt that it will need to use Canvas, and let's see what will happen. Will it preview the game or will it just provide the code? Let's see. Okay, so here we have a similar. We have the original chat interface here and it automatically opens the canvas, and we can see our game code here, and it used JavaScript to create a game. I don't think it will run because it's only using JavaScript code. There's no HTML. But let's see what are the available tools here. It has code review, port to a language, fix bugs, add logs, and add comments. There's no preview. So this is not an alternative to Claude Artifacts right now, but it can do some code reviews. Okay, let's see. What will happen if we choose code review? You can see that when we click on the shortcuts here, it doesn't include the user's prompt. It just shows what ChatGPT says, and it kinda makes sense. But I guess it would be helpful if we can see what we did to get this result, right? Like I mentioned earlier. So let's go to the comments. It says, the game restart logic should provide an option to confirm. Okay, so what will happen if I say apply? It's scanning the code one by one, which is very nice. I thought it would just change that part. And let's see what happens. There's the confirmation. And if you go to the previous version, there's no diff again. I like the diff. It says, consider adding more engaging feedback. You can close it or apply it. So these are just suggestions. Let's keep it as is. And then let's try to port it to another language. What language do we want to port this to? There's a level here, Python, C++, PHP. I wonder why it's presented this way. There's JavaScript, TypeScript. So what's the current one? I know it's JavaScript, there's Java as well, but let's try Python. It converted the whole code into Python. Now, let's try fix bugs. What will happen if we just simply click it? It's scanning the code one by one, line by line, to see if there's a bug. And it's making changes. It says, I reviewed the code and fixed a bug where the player answer function was not being called at the correct time. I also ensured the first answer is displayed after an incorrect guess. Let me know if you need further improvements or additional features. I would really want to see what changed, and it didn't show it to me right now. I hope that changes in the future. Okay, let's see what will happen if we add logs. It's scanning the whole code again. It added print statements. So it added several print statements there. So that's good. So let's go to add comments. It added those comments. Alright. So I think it did a good job, but we can only copy it. We will not be able to view it, right? So let's ask it to preview it. Or let's try to convert it again. Let's see. Can you run the game in preview mode using Canvas? It says, currently I can't run interactive code directly in the Canvas environment. However, you can copy and paste the code into your local Python environment to play the game. It cannot do it right now, so we can either do a rewrite or we can one by one select and add some suggestions, for example, Moses or David. So let's see here. Let's try changing Moses. Let's ask ChatGPT to suggest another set of emojis for Moses. It's scanning the whole code again, even though I just asked this particular line to change. Did it change? Okay, yeah, so it changed a bit. It replaced this and it replaced 3 of the emojis. Okay, so that's the inline suggestion and targeted editing. So it can be triggered when we select something and then ask ChatGPT. But if we ask directly here in the chat box, it would be a complete rewrite. So that's it. There's no preview running in preview. But let's see if we can port it back to TypeScript, for example. Okay, so it converted the code to TypeScript, and let's see if we can run the game. Let's say, can you run the game in preview mode in Canvas? Yeah, it still cannot run directly. However, we can run this code in an online playground. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed by this feature because Anthropic already has a preview, but it's good because you can directly change something here. For example, we can add more characters here. Let's say, add 2 more characters. Let's see if it can add 2 more. There you go. Joseph and Ruth, it adjusted the whole code. And if we go back to the previous version, look at Jesus at line 66. Next version, and it added Joseph and Ruth there. That's about it. You can use this Canvas feature either for writing or coding. And I hope it helps. I hope OpenAI continues to improve this feature as they've mentioned in the article. I'm a bit sad though, because of the lack of preview functionality. But these shortcuts are helpful, but they are just shortcuts to the chat text box here. Let's say do a code review. It's the same as selecting code review from the shortcut menu. There you go. Okay, this is exciting. I am sure there's a lot of people who are going to be happy. I'm happy with this, especially with the writing, perhaps, but for coding, maybe it's not that good for me currently. Next time, I will do a comparison between ChatGPT Canvas with Claude Artifact. So please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much. Until next time, happy coding.